This is a serious video. Stop horsing around. Hello everyone, Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here to ride off into a wonderful champion guide with Marius. We will have plenty of horse puns here, because why not? It's too easy. And we're going to have some fun looking at the horse. The horse, of course, is Mr. Ed? Well, not really. The horse, of course, is Marius Missions. He is one of the harder champions to get. A lot of this stuff is time-gated, unfortunately. You really don't need to be particularly high in anything, however. You do need to do a bunch of live arena. You do need to get a bunch of souls. For the most part, it's a time investment, as well as a couple cases you're supposed to beat a couple of Centranos floors. Overall, Marius missions, if you put some effort into working on Marius missions, you can get Marius eventually. And in fact, I think Marius is actually probably ultimately easier to get than Ramontu, because Ramontu requires tag gold, and that is a deal breaker for a lot of people, whereas Marius doesn't really require you to be out of silver live arena for the most part. It certainly helps. He does require you to eventually be able to do brutal Hydra. Nightmare Hydra probably makes it easier. But none of these things are so outlandish that you can't do them on most accounts eventually. So he's a great champ. Let's go take a look at him, see how good he is, see what you can do with this kit, and then we will use him in all kinds of places in the game. All right, so we have Marius the Gallant here, and he is a sharp-looking horse. It's got the mane right here. It's pretty cool. Dressed up. I like the fact that they've got the lance, a little bit of humor in there. I suspect he was a knight. I don't really know his lore, but I'm sure he's got some cool lore, because Raid actually does a good job with the lore as well. You can read the lore right here if you ever want to. But I've got mine fully booked, which was very good. And let's go into his kit. So all of his attacks are AoEs, which is amazing. First one here has a 35% chance, bulkable to 50 for an Enfeeble, which is great against waves and great in PvE because Enfeeble is one of the best debuffs in the game. Enfeeble forces you to weak hit, and that messes with all kinds of abilities and messes with nukers really badly. It's one of the only ways you can get a Void champion to weak hit, so you can actually counteract Void champions. You can counteract all kinds of damage. It can get him shaped a little bit, so that's certainly a danger with Marius, but that's the only ability that really does do it. However, he pulls this off quite a bit. So his A2 is a defense and max HP, and this can hit really hard. It's a 3-hitter, it's an AoE, and it decreases the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn. This is great because this does not trigger sheep. He can strip off Stone Skin fairly reliably because if it's 1 turn Stone Skin, he's got 3 shots to decrease it by 1 turn. And if it's 2 turn, he's going to at least get 1 turn, if not both. This is the Stone Skin stripping champ you've been looking for. It is great, is reliable, and he doesn't get sheeped. Makes it super easy to use. On top of that, he's got Galloping Thunder, 4-turn cooldown. And this is an increased accuracy and increased defensive buffs on all allies for 3 turns, then places a stun debuff on the enemy with the highest turn meter, and then grants an extra turn. So this is on a 4-turn cooldown, but ends up being on a 3-turn cooldown because you get the extra turn and then you use another skill. It works really well. It turns out he can basically A3, A2, and then he'll do an A1, and then he'll A3, A2 again pretty quickly. And he's got the increased defense, so he does additional damage, and the increased accuracy. Plus, that goes on everybody, not just him, which is absolutely amazing. And the increased accuracy means that you can build him for damage, you can build him to nuke, you can build him with some speed, and you don't have to compromise when you're trying to go for some of that accuracy. You get the accuracy good enough, and then increased accuracy gives him a 50% bonus to accuracy, which means he got tons of accuracy, which means he can overcome a lot of resistance, and he keeps it up pretty much indefinitely. And then finally, his passive, which is what makes him really cool as well, he is immune to turn meter reduction, and then whenever an enemy either changes form or decreases his turn meter, or at least attempts to decrease his turn meter, he'll counterattack using his A1, which means he's putting out those Enfeebles pretty reliably, and if you build him for damage, he hits fairly hard. He's not going to one-shot a lot of people with that A1, but he can hit fairly hard with the A1. The damage does build up, and so what ends up happening is he gets preemptively enfeebles out against other champions. So this is a mythical counter. This can counter Armand's, although he does not immune to the stun, so you need to make sure he's equipped with other things, particularly either Stone Skin would be good, immunity / feral would be good, pinpoint would be good. Things like that will help him be immune to the stuns. And so that'll give you a chance to run him directly into an Armand's, where he might actually then proceed to nuke the Armands and can help counter that. So very, very good champion. As far as blessings are concerned, I don't actually have a blessing for him, which is unfortunate. Lightning Cage would not suck because he does do some buffs. Intimidating Presence isn't bad for anybody, but he doesn't really have an aura, so that's probably not the best thing for him. Cruelty could be interesting if you really need him as a support champion. Probably not great for Arena. Temporal Change is never a bad one. Same with Ward of the Fallen. Although Ward of the Fallen really needs to be a 6-star, and if you're doing Arena, Ward of the Fallen is where that's at. You're probably going to be going Sheep with him. Life Harvest is probably not particularly bad here. Soul Reap would be fine if you want him to be a nuker. You've got Polymorph is obviously an option. If you get him a 6-star, Crushing Rend would be interesting as well, because that's ignoring a ton of extra defense, particularly for things like Hydra. He will absolutely smack at that point in time. Brimstone is certainly an option. He will have the accuracy to land Brimstone, although for Hydra, which is where Brimstone can be good, landing it on an AoE is not always the best, because you don't can land it on heads that aren't going to be attacking with their skills. And then finally, you could certainly say Nature's Wrath isn't too bad for him, because he is going to be placing a bunch of those debuffs out there, but that's his A1, so you need him to A1 before Nature's Wrath really becomes an issue. So I think something like Polymorph or Crushing Rend would be good. Soul Reap would probably be fairly good if you're going to go nuking with him. Cruelty doesn't suck, although it's probably not the best thing for him comparing some of the other stuff. Temporal Change is fairly good. And then probably Lightning Cage. So those are the blessings I would probably put on my Marius. Really will depend on what I use him for. Probably going to end up with Polymorph, just because Polymorph is really what you need in the arena, and it sucks. How do I have mine built? Well, I have mine in 4-piece pinpoint and 4-piece lethal, because he is a nuker and I needed him to do damage. So I needed him in the lethal or savage or instinct, but something like that would have been good. I could have certainly settled for a 6-piece Slayer set as well. I just couldn't make that work with the way I had him built as well, particularly because I wanted the 4-piece other set. So because I wanted the 4-piece pinpoint, I couldn't do a 6-piece Slayer as well, because I want that ignore defense. It's a huge, huge deal, particularly for the arena, but also for Hydra. The pinpoint is fine. Stone Skin is also an option, but I liked Pinpoint because Pinpoint gives me additional accuracy. Feral would be actually really good as well, because Feral would give me the 2-turn block debuffs as opposed to the 1-turn intercept, which means I don't have to worry about stuns or sheep, but it also means that I only have one of those, as opposed to for 2 turns, I'd be immune to any debuff other than sheep. And then finally, I've got a refresh amulet here because I had no good crit damage amulets, and this crit damage amulet is absolutely insane. I don't have everything glyphed up particularly well. I spent an awful lot of Chaos Ore to try to get more speed on these boots. I could not do it. I tried to get a better chest plate. I only had a 5-star chest plate. I needed the crit rate in lethal just because of the way I had to build him, but this piece was already crit rate plus 10, so that was great. And overall, we've got speed of 256. I've got accuracy of 281. This is good enough to not need a boost in accuracy in Hydra and most PvE, which is I thought was a good idea. It also means he will land, if he counterattacks with his A1 without the increased accuracy, he can still land the weaken on several other champions as well. I've got his defense fairly high, but I did build him with speed boots because I absolutely wanted him to go super fast, because he does have the max HP. If I wanted to edge out a little more damage, I certainly could put him in defense percent boots, but as a max HP hitter for his big hit, I felt that the defense didn't need to be quite as important as going as fast as possible. As I mentioned before, Stone Skin is an option for him as well, especially if you're going to be going in arena. Slayer, especially at a 9-piece Slayer, would be absolutely amazing in Hydra, because he will get tons of extra turns. He will do tons of extra damage. It probably would be his absolute best Hydra dedicated build if you can get 9-piece Slayer. Savage works just fine. And really, if you decide you don't want to use him as a nuker and you want him as a pure debuffer, you could certainly stick him in the stun set. You could stick him in a hex set. You could, or curse set, I guess you'd say. You could stick him in provoke if you want to be provoke in Hydra. There's all kinds of cool things you can do with Marius, and that makes Marius so good. He is actually very, very flexible. I, however, think that this nuking build with some kind of protection, and to be fair, I've got the pinpoint. I'm still debating whether or not I would rather stick him in Stone Skin with my lethal or not. I don't really have great Stone Skin, and I struggled to get both the accuracy and the speed I need if I wanted to do it that way. So for now, he's going to be in this pinpoint and lethal set. With that down, the build theory is out there as well. You know, these are the stats you're kind of aiming for. You're aiming for very fast. You're aiming for high accuracy. You want the full crit rate and crit damage, and then you want to pump up his defense. He should be very tanky because defense champions are very tanky. And let's go take him into a couple places and see where he's good. Before we take him anywhere, we should actually go over the masteries for the champion as well. He is a nuker, and so I have built him as a nuker. So I have the offense tree. I've got the extra crit rate. I've got the extra damage. Here, I've got Life Drinker, because I think that'll help keep them alive. I've got the extra damage with champions on low HP. I've got the extra damage by higher max HP. We've got the A1 that does damage, and I chose this one over the kills because he does a lot of counterattacking with that A1 for anybody taking an extra turn. So I figured getting his A1 to tick up to do a little bit more damage overall would probably prove overall to be more useful, especially against boss encounters where the max HP hits should cap out pretty reliably. And then finally, because we're going with a pure nuker build, I've got Helm Smasher to ignore some defense as well. We then went the support tree. He needs accuracy, so we want the accuracy things here. The only debuff he throws up is he does have a stun that he'll throw up on his A3, but for the most part, it's going to be the enfeebles, which are a 50% here or there. And if I gave him Arcane Celerity, it is useless outside of Arena, or at least it is useless, or at least it is useless in Hydra, which is one of the places I want to use him in. So I decided not to do Arcane Celerity for that. We did do Cycle of Magic because getting skills back early never hurts. I certainly could have instead done something like Cycle of Violence if I thought he was going to trigger that, or Wrath of the Slain is certainly an option as well. Lore of Steel seemed good because he's in the pinpoint sets. That gets me just a little bit of extra speed. If you're doing any set with multiple stats, particularly the stats are very relevant, Lore of Steel is good. It's not required, however. You could certainly do something like Evil Eye if you'd rather go instead. We went with Master Hexer because Enfeeble can be Master Hexed. It's actually not one of the ones that cannot be Master Hexed. So you could occasionally get that Enfeeble for 2 turns instead of 1. That's huge. And since it only lands at a 50% rate, Sniper giving it to the 55% rate made a lot of sense here as well. Now, if I was going full on support champion, you could certainly go with Eagle Eye as well. You could certainly argue that Lasting Gifts is not bad on him, but since he gets it almost always up because it's on a 3-turn cooldown effectively, and then he gets the extra turn out of some other stuff as well. These should be up on most every other champion all of the time, so I did not think Lasting Yes was really quite as good as having these two out there. And then for a defense tree, if I was going to go with more of a support build, I would pick this if we're going for more Hydra, so he gets the AoE going this side. I'd pick this side here to get the critical damage if you're going for more Arena. Eventually get yourself to the Cycle of Revenge, which I think is very important. He already does some counterattacking, but again, Retribution wouldn't be too bad. Deterrence would not be too bad as well. If for some reason you insist on putting him in a stun set, I think there are better ways to go, but if you insist on putting him in a stun set, you could certainly do Fearsome Presence as well. It would not be the worst thing if you're going to maximize putting stun set or provoke set or something like that on him, but I think you're better off with Eagle Eye or Helm Smasher, depending on whether or not you're going for damage or support. So this is a spider speed team, and there's nothing specifically special about this team. There's plenty of different speed teams you can build with this. This is the one that I've built, and honestly, I just had to drop Marius in here, and he works just fine. I had an Acresia in here, so she worked very well for this as well. Basically, you're looking for burns, ignite the burns, and then kill the spiderlings and the spider, and Marius does this very well. Couple different options for this. You could also certainly do this with multiple newts. I could certainly run Newt Acresia and Marius and be done with this team as well. It'd be kind of an interesting way to do it, but it would work just fine. So let's go run this one quickly. Basically, I can show you the presets on here quickly. So Deacon does his thing. So he does the time compression just to make sure I have enough speed. I really don't need him to do that anymore, but he also then puts out the decreased defense on every spiderling as a result of taking that one turn. So I don't think it's a big problem. And then we have TO igniting, and we have other TO igniting. But first, we have Ignatius doing his required burns. You can certainly use somebody like a Walking Tomb Drang. He'll do the same thing because he's got the guaranteed burns. That will make this absolutely 100%. Marius gives you an extra layer of unpredictability with this, where you didn't necessarily have to have a all burns, a guaranteed champion. So you're actually more likely to just be fine if you're missing a couple burns here and there with this particular team, because Marius's triple hit is overkill at this point in time. Finally, Marius will just do his thing, because Marius's AI will automatically do his Galloping Thunder and then his Death or Glory. I could probably save a turn by turning off the Death or Glory. In fact, we'll give that a try quickly and see if that works. So we're going to run this, and this should take 5 or 6 actions and 10 to 12 seconds. So Deacon does his thing. Now all the spiderlings are there. They're on fire. Fire ignited, and boom, boom, boom. There goes the spider. 12 seconds. Nice and easy, pretty reliable. Always going to be 6 turns, so it's never going to be 5 turns, but that's fine. And again, Deacon may not even be needed anymore in this particular team. And again, I could also do something kind of fun like a triple note. In fact, let's go do that and check that out and see how that works. All right, we got this set up. We've got Deacon to do his thing. We've got Newt to do his Blessed Bash. We got Newt to do his Blessed Bash. We got Acresia doing her Battlefield Dominance. And we've got Marius doing his thing as well. Let's go give this a try and see how this works. All right, so Deacon does his thing. Gets that decreased defense out there. Newt chunks a bunch of stuff off. Marius does his thing. Breezy does his thing, and we didn't even need the other Newt. Look at that. 5 turns, 15 seconds, and I actually have one too many champions on this team. That's hilarious. That's awesome. Love it. So yeah, that just kind of lets you know how good Marius is. You can use him in this. He can certainly be useful for wave clear and other situations as well. He can be a boss killer, very much like Newt, because he's got that triple hitter max HP, but because it's an AoE, he can be very good for some of the double boss stages, as well as for things like the Immortal Dragon in this particular rotation of Doom Tower. So let's go take a look at Arena and see how good he is in Arena. All right, I'm going to be manualing this stuff just because I want to have a little bit of control over this, and I want to be able to pick what abilities we're dealing with here. But we're going to try this team and see how well this works. We've got 3 mythicals here, which means Marius should occasionally go and interrupt. I hope I'm fast enough to actually outspeed that Arbiter so we can get some advantages here, but we're going to have people changing over constantly, so that'll help. I've got Ancora here, who is super tanky and can pull up my Narcissus, and my Narcissus can actually hit through Siegfried's passive. But that's the other thing that Marius can do very well too, because Marius will strip buffs. So if Marius kills Siegfried, he'll strip the block damage that gets put up by the passive and then proceed to hit again. So he's actually really fun against champions like this or champions like a Leo, because he will strip some of those unkillables that happen on people. Swift Parry versus Marius is also pretty weak as well. So let's give this a try. All right, so we were not fast enough, which is fine, but we got the change here, and look at that. We got some enfeebles out there, so that is good. We are getting locked out, but that is fine. Have you attack that, get some more enfeebles out, maybe? No. But Siegfried couldn't do a lot because he's enfeebled. Still managed to actually hit through it and kill my Marius, but that's fine. Narcissus should be able to mostly kill somebody. Would have nice to have been actually able to block that out. Let's pick up Marius here. Awesome. We keep on killing folks. That is always good. Get that increase attack and defense up, and get that triple hitter going. See, Sigfrin's passive went off, but because, well, he didn't go off, so he didn't actually get stripped. That's a little annoying, but we can, we're going to set him off if we do that. So let's just lock out his skills. That didn't work. And there we go. So he wasn't quite up to the task there, but I was in that fight because Marius was able to do some pretty good stuff, and that Enfeeble was really, really clutch early on. You know, maybe I could run that again. Maybe it would work. Maybe it wouldn't. Let's go try another team here. We've got this one here with a Narcissus and a Crixia. I think we may have a similar problem here, so let me go find a different team and see I'll get back. Alrighty, this time we're not playing around with the speed, so I've got my Odin for the speed lead, I've got Arby, and I've got Sify here, and then I've got Marius. He's going to be most of the damage. Odin can kill people as well, which I think will be very helpful against this team. So we're not going to start this again on auto, because I want to be able to control this fight. And again, this is part of why I'm not sure if I want him in Pinpoint or if I want him in Stone Skin, because against teams like this, the Stone Skin would possibly be better. But we go first because we are faster. So we keep on boosting this turn meter. This is great. I can try to lock folks out. Let's instead just go for the stun. Because if I could stun Crixia and remove stuff, that would have been great. I could not. But now we can try to strip that Stone Skin. I got one of the strips on the Stone Skin up there. We got a decreased defense on Narcissus, and this should just kill him. So that is great. Let's see if we can strip that as well. Probably not. Nope, that is fine. Get some damage out with that Enfeeble. Look at that. We actually managed to kill Sigfrin, which was great. And from here, we should be good to go. Because you're going to transform. I don't think you've got a revive. I could be wrong, because I actually am not super familiar with Crixia, because I don't have her. But looks like we're in good shape at this point in time. So, yep, the horse doing some extra damage and taking actions when people changing forms. Very good. He's great in Arena. Obviously, against Mythicals, he brings you some extra control and some extra ability to react to Mythicals when you otherwise might struggle. And that strippage is really, really good. So we're going to take him in Hydra and take a look and see how well he does. And I think I'm going to compare him to one of the other max HP champions that I regularly use. All right, so in Hydra, we've got the Nightmare Horse team right here, and as well as I have my Nightmare team down here that's got Wallmaster, and I am going to be removing my Wallmaster to put in the horse. So first off, I want to run this team on Nightmare and see what we get with the Wallmaster on this team. Wallmaster gives me some additional block buffs, which is great, but I do have the Ugo there, and she's in Relentless, so she should generally be able to keep that up most of the time. And on top of that, Marius can strip, so while that may make it a little bit harder to control the Poison Cloud, Marius being able to strip will be able to remove other buffs that might get thrown on later to help with this team as well, whereas Othorian is certainly going to be dropping the buffs. The other thing that's kind of fun is Othorian basically has a 3-turn cooldown on his AoE double hitter, whereas Marius effectively has a 2-turn cooldown on his triple hitter. So it's going to be how much extra damage is Marius going to get for a triple hitter, as well as getting that off more often, and then overall how well they're built. So let's get this running. I'll start this Hydra team. I don't really need to preset anything, and we'll let it run, and I'll see how much damage we do, and then I will come back and we'll take a look at what this runs with Marius. All right, so we are back here with the results. We had almost 340 million damage on Nightmare. Othorian did a lot of it. Acresia did a lot of it as well. Put myself back on the camera there. Necmo certainly helped a little bit, but Necmo, Glaciate, and Ugo are not there to do damage. They are there to support the damage dealers, and Bavald is there also to give me some hexes as well. So we are going to swap in Marius and see how Marius compares to Othorian. The other thing that he may do that Othorian does not is he gives me some additional increased defense, which may actually make this team just a little bit tankier, which may keep them just a little bit more alive. Could be interesting, although Glyciad, I believe, put some extra increased defense out there as well, so maybe not going to really help that much. All right, we are going to do a regroup here, and I will run this horse team, and we'll go from there. So I'll be right back once this team's run, and we'll see where we got. So, in checking out the damage, Marius is an absolute horse, as we expected, but I did not do as well as I did at the other team. And I really do think that the and I really do think that the block debuffs is a big part of it. I was just watching a couple of these runs, and yes, I did end up ranking another second run because I lost one of them within 30 million because I did not get provokes out early. It's something I would have rerun anyway. I didn't have that problem on the other run, so I did rerun one of them. But yeah, I was definitely having issues with the reflect damage coming up, and the fact that we did not have two different champions throwing up block buffs was a bit of a problem in the way this team ran. So, hey, Marius is an absolute beast. He is a great champion in Hydra. To be fair, I could certainly swap him out for Acresia, or I could swap Acresia in and put Acresia in a different team instead of Wallmaster, for example, and see if that gave me additional damage. But overall, Marius is definitely a beast. It really will probably depend on your team whether or not he is better than Wallmaster or not better than Wallmaster. But overall, very good champion, lots of damage in Hydra. So, hey, don't be afraid to use him in Hydra, and if he doesn't end up in your Nightmare team, he will help one of your teams because he is an absolute horse. So overall, what do I think of Marius? I think he's a workhorse, unintended, and I think he is a great champion for any account. Is he going to be the absolute best champion in Arena? No, he's balanced. Is he going to be the absolute best champion in Hydra? No, he's balanced. Is he going to be the absolute best champion in... Is he going to be the absolute best champion in some dungeons? Well, yeah, he could be the best champion, but he's among the best. So I think he will be absolutely amazing for anybody that decides to go for him, especially if you're struggling because you don't have a Newt. He will unlock some of the content that Newt unlocks, not necessarily Fire Knight, but he can bring that triple hitter max defense to a lot of other teams that can also benefit from getting a Marius. So I definitely feel he is worth the time and the effort to go for. So if you have not gotten into doing Hydra, push your Hydra teams. If you've not gotten into the hard dungeons, start pushing the hard dungeons. Do a little bit of live arena because live arena will eventually get you some great area bonuses that will help you all over the game and will overall help you advance your account and will be needed for some of these Marius missions. Overall, most of the stuff is time gated. There's very few things that are achievement gated, and those are the dungeons you have to eventually get to the dungeon hard 10. You can do it. I believe in you, and I think Marius is absolutely worth it. So thank you all for hanging out to the end of this video. If you get a chance, like this video, hit that subscribe button, smash that. I definitely appreciate it. If you got any thoughts on Marius, things I could have done better, things you think I could add him in, or things you want to see me bring Marius in with, let me know. I appreciate your comments down below. Appreciate everything. You guys are so amazing. Thank you for all the support. And until the next video, I'm Bront CatHerder.